The first light of dawn painted the Lagos sky in hues of orange and purple, but inside the mansion on the Lecky estate, the light was artificial, controlled, and sterile. Zahrah stood before the full-length mirror in her walk-in closet, a space larger than her entire room back in Ajegunle. She was dressed not in the new, armor-like clothing Davies had selected, but in a simple pair of jeans and a university sweatshirt she had brought from her old life. It was a deliberate act of defiance, a tiny rebellion. For a few hours, she would just be a student. She would be Zahrah. She slung her backpack over her shoulder, the familiar weight of her textbooks a comfort. This was her anchor, her proof that a world outside these gilded walls still existed. She took a deep breath, mentally preparing for the chaotic, liberating noise of the Unilag campus, for the easy, uncomplicated banter with Chizzy and Tola. She needed it like a drowning man needs air. She walked out of her room, her footsteps silent on the plush hallway runner, and descended the grand staircase. The mansion was quiet, but it was the quiet of a beast holding its breath. She could feel the presence of the staff, hidden away in their quarters, waiting for the day to officially begin. As she reached the bottom step and turned towards the grand foyer and the front door, a figure detached itself from the shadows near the entrance. It was Jonathan. He stood, not in the formal suit he'd worn during their introduction, but in a dark, tactical jacket over a black t-shirt, cargo pants, and sturdy boots, the professional uniform of his trade. And it did something to him. The sharp, handsome features were now etched with a lethal competence. He wasn't just staff anymore. He was a weapon, polished and ready. The sight of him, so formidable and so unexpectedly blocking her path, sent a jolt through her system that was part fear, part something else she refused to name. "Good morning, madam," he said, his voice a low, resonant baritone that seemed to vibrate in the spacious foyer. Zahrah forced a casual tone. "Good morning, Jonathan. I'm heading to campus." She took a step towards the door, expecting him to move aside. He didn't. He remained a solid, immovable obstacle between her and the outside world. A flicker of annoyance sparked within her. "Excuse me," she said, a little more sharply, and tried to step around him. In a movement that was fluid, practiced, and utterly disconcerting, he didn't just move. He pivoted, falling into step directly behind her, so close she could feel the slight disturbance in the air his body created. His presence was a wall at her back. Confusion and a rising sense of alarm made her skin prickle. What was this? Was he escorting her out? She pushed the heavy front door open and stepped into the cool morning air, and stopped dead, parked directly in front of the steps where the understated Camry had been, was the Lexus SUV, the black, gleaming, unmistakable symbol of her entrapment. And standing by the open rear passenger door was Alex, looking as impassive as ever in his dark suit. The pieces clicked into place with a sickening finality. The tactical gear, the shadow at her back, the car. No, the word screamed in her mind. No, no, no. This wasn't a simple ride to school. This was a procession. The carefully constructed illusion of normalcy she had clung to shattered into a million pieces. The rage she had suppressed the night before, after Xiao Meng's message, erupted to the surface, hot and immediate. She spun around to face Alex, her composure snapping. "What the hell is going on?" she snarled, the words laced with a venom that surprised even her. She gestured wildly from Jonathan, a looming statue behind her, to the obnoxiously luxurious car. "What is this?" Alex didn't even blink. His expression remained one of detached professionalism, which only infuriated her more. "My lady," he said, his tone infuriatingly calm, as if explaining a basic concept to a child. "Your safety and convenience are paramount. From this moment on, we will accompany you. Always." "Accompany me," she echoed, her voice rising hysterically. To a microeconomics lecture? You think I need a tactical unit and a chauffeur to go to school? This is insane. Your perception of your needs is no longer relevant, Alex replied, his gaze steady and uncompromising. You are Ezinjadiaha. Heiresses of your stature do not take public transport. They do not walk through crowded, unsecured campuses alone. It presents an unacceptable risk profile. Jonathan will ensure your physical security. I will manage your logistics and public interface. This is not a negotiation. The cold, hard logic of it was a cage slamming shut. Risk profile. Public interface. She wasn't a person. She was a high-value asset, a package to be delivered and retrieved. Her mind raced, a frantic animal looking for an escape. And then it landed on the most immediate, terrifying problem. What will I tell my friends? The question came out as a desperate whisper. Chizzy, Tola, what do I say? Oh, don't mind the armed guard and the billionaire's car. I just won the lottery. For the first time, a flicker of something, perhaps pity, perhaps impatience, crossed Alex's features. You will tell them nothing, he stated. You are Ezinjadiaha. You do not explain yourself. If they ask, you dismiss it. A family precaution, a recent security concern. You change the subject. You are aloof. That is the character you must play. Now, please get in the car. You have a lecture at 8 a.m. Defeated, her shoulders slumping under the weight of the new reality, Zahrah turned back towards the car. Jonathan's hand, she noticed, was resting near the small of his back, his eyes constantly scanning the perimeter of the estate, the street, the sky. He was working. She was the job. She slid into the cool, leather-clad interior of the SUV. It smelled of wealth and silence. Jonathan took the front passenger seat, his large frame making the spacious cabin seem suddenly small. Alex got behind the wheel. The driver, Alex, who held all the secrets, was now her chauffeur. The symbolism was not lost on her. The gates swung open silently, and the Lexus pulled out onto the quiet, manicured street of the estate. As they drove, the neighborhoods transformed, shifting from the serene, guarded wealth of Lekki to the more vibrant, chaotic energy that surrounded the university. With every kilometer, Zahrah's anxiety grew. She watched the world through the tinted windows, the Danfo buses packed with students, the roadside vendors selling akara and bottled water, the groups of young people walking together, laughing, free. Her world, the world she was now separated from by bulletproof glass and a man with a gun. Drop me off at the back gate, she pleaded, leaning forward. The one by the Faculty of Engineering. It's quieter, fewer people. Your schedule indicates your lecture is in the Faculty of Social Sciences building. The most efficient and secure drop-off is at the main entrance, Alex stated, his eyes on the road. This isn't about efficiency, she shot back, desperation creeping in. This is about not looking like a complete maniac. The perception of safety outweighs the perception of normality, Alex countered, his tone leaving no room for argument. The Lexus sped on, a predator moving effortlessly through the chaotic prey of Lagos traffic. It didn't stop for potholes, it didn't honk, it simply moved, and the other cars seemed to part for it. They arrived at the Unilag main gate and cruised through, the security guards barely giving the expensive vehicle a second glance. And then they were inside. The car moved slowly, purposefully, down the main artery of the campus. A sleek black shark in a sea of brightly colored, hustling student life. Heads turned. It was subtle at first, then undeniable. Students stopped their conversations to stare. They pointed. Whispers spread like wildfire. A car like that, on campus during a regular lecture hour, was an event. Zahrah sank lower in her seat, her cheeks burning with a mortification, so intense it felt like a physical illness. "Please," she whispered, but no one was listening. The Lexus came to a smooth, silent halt right in front of the towering social sciences building. The ultimate in-your-face statement. Alex was out of the driver's seat in an instant, opening her door. Jonathan was already out, standing by the hood, his stance wide, his eyes hidden behind sunglasses, actively scanning the crowds that were now gathering at a respectful, curious distance. This was her walk of shame. Not for anything she had done, but for what she had become. She had to get out. There was no choice. Taking a deep, shuddering breath, she swung her legs out and stepped onto the pavement. The whispers grew louder. "Is that who I think it is? See motor. Who is that? Is she a politician's daughter?" She could feel hundreds of eyes on her, stripping her bare. She clutched the strap of her backpack, her knuckles white. She didn't look at anyone, keeping her gaze fixed on the entrance of the building, 100 meters away, that felt like 1,000. And then it began. Jonathan fell into step, slightly behind, and to her left. Alex walked a pace ahead, subtly clearing a path. They moved as a unit, a human shield isolating her in a bubble of terrifying privilege. She saw Chizzy and Tola then. They were standing by the steps, their mouths agape. Chizzy's hand was frozen in midair, halfway through a gesture. Tola's textbooks were clutched to her chest like a shield. Their expressions were a chaotic mix of awe, confusion, and betrayal. Zahrah's heart hammered against her ribs. She wanted to run to them, to explain, to laugh it off. But she couldn't. She was Ezinjadiaha. She didn't explain. As her little procession drew level with them, Chizzy found her voice. "Zahrah, what's all this?" Zahrah forced her face into the neutral, disinterested mask Miss Phillips had drilled into her. She offered a slight, almost imperceptible smile, the kind that said, "I see you, but now is not the time." "Just family stuff," she said, her voice carefully modulated, the cadence off, the accent flattened. "I'll see you inside." She didn't stop walking. Alex and Jonathan didn't break stride. They moved past her two best friends, as if they were part of the scenery. The look of utter hurt and confusion on Chizzy's face was a physical blow. Zahrah felt it in her soul. But she kept walking, her head held high in the way Miss Phillips had taught her, the walk of someone who owned the space between points A and B. They entered the building. The lecture hall was on the second floor. Jonathan positioned himself at the bottom of the staircase, a silent, intimidating sentinel. Alex accompanied her up the stairs and to the door of the lecture hall. "I will be waiting here," he said softly. "Jonathan will secure the perimeter." Secure the perimeter for a university lecture. Zahrah nodded, unable to speak, and pushed the door open. The hall, which usually buzzed with pre-lecture chatter, fell silent as she walked in. Every head turned. She saw the same stunned expressions, the same whispers. She saw her microeconomics professor pause in setting up his laptop, his eyes wide behind his glasses. She walked to her usual seat, the one she shared with Chizzy and Tola. It was empty. They hadn't come in yet. Or they weren't coming. She sat down, placing her backpack on the floor. The familiar scrape of the chair leg on the linoleum floor was the only sound in the hushed room. She could feel Alex's presence just outside the closed door. She could picture Jonathan downstairs, controlling the flow of human traffic. She was alone, more alone than she had ever been in her life, surrounded by hundreds of people and two armed men. The professor began his lecture, his voice unnaturally loud in the quiet. The topic was opportunity cost, the value of the next best alternative foregone when making a decision. Zahrah stared at the board, the graphs and equations a meaningless jumble. She understood opportunity cost now, on a level no textbook could ever explain. She had chosen wealth, power, and security for her father. The cost was her name, her friends, her freedom, and her soul. And as she sat there, in a bubble of forced isolation, listening to a lecture she could no longer comprehend, she wondered for the first time, with a crushing, terrifying certainty, if the price had been far, far too high.